Hello, and welcome to the M3 Bearcast. My name is Malcolm Travers. Male Media Mind is a grassroots organization dedicated to uplifting and unifying our community through dialogue, insight, creativity, and knowledge. And on this podcast, I break down some of the issues that I bring to my live streams on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/malemediamind2. And those conversations are usually around community, self-development, spirituality, relationships, and mental health. And in this episode, I bring to you a few videos from my live streams that we discussed. The first being on moral intuition versus rationality, and the idea that we're not necessarily defending what is true, but defending what we value. And when getting into conversations with people, remembering to ask what the underlying value that they're defending rather than whether or not their arguments are true. We also talk about social judgment theory and the idea that we aren't persuaded completely from a single instance of an argument, but rather we judge the value of an argument on a latitude of acceptance, indifference, or rejection. And slowly over time, our anchor position changes. And what that means for discussing difficult or controversial issues with people you're trying to persuade. We talk about the process of deconstruction and how sometimes people reduce leaving the church to church hurt, violated emotionally or socially by the church itself or people in the church, rather than people just finding the arguments about doctrine illegible or illogical. And we talk about the concept of defining privilege, even for minority groups. What privileges are in your life, and are you able to accept privileges in certain circumstances, even if in many others you are marginalized? And we also talk about power and politics. One video dealing with the Black Panther Party and why they would have seemed threatening, not just because of guns, but of their threatening the social order by providing social services to their communities, and the unseriousness by which some of the sycophancy of the Trump cabinet, and a specific incident where Trump has his cabinet members wearing clothes that don't fit. All right, here are the clips.
Most disagreements aren't about facts. In the book The Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt argues that humans are not primarily rational truth seekers. We are instead moral storytellers. We have moral intuitions first, and then our reasons come later. We reason more like lawyers defending a client than scientists defending a hypothesis. And even then, remember, scientists are still human. And this is why political, cultural, and personal arguments feel impossible to resolve. Because the thing is, people aren't disagreeing about data. Instead, they're often operating from different moral foundations altogether. Care versus harm, authority versus subversion, liberty versus oppression. And so you should use this book as a sort of translation manual. When someone makes a strong moral claim, the first question you should ask shouldn't be, is this true? Instead, it should be, what value framework are they thinking from? And you see, if you can't translate someone's moral language into their own terms, you can't persuade them. And in fact, you can't even fully understand them.
Yeah. I remember reading that some years ago. I think that book's about 20 years old, and it is really good. I might have to pick it up again. But yeah, at the core of it is the idea that none of us are truly rational unless we choose to be. No, it's really, we just want to defend the way that we see the world because we truly believe it to be correct. It is that you have to actively dissuade yourself from protecting if you want to grow as a person. And so instead of listening to people's arguments about being true or not, like they were saying, think about like what underlying value are they trying to protect? What thing is important to them, and maybe learn some more about why that is, instead of trying to tear down someone's arguments because it's Anyway, number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, people will just dig in.
People keep saying the same thing in my comments. You just have church hurt. I get why people say that,
I think that's a story that people understand. Somebody gets hurt by church folks and then they walk away from the faith, but that actually wasn't my story. If my story was just church hurt, I would have left a long time ago. The truth is, I stayed much longer than most people would have because I believe deeply. See, I was a devout Christian. I didn't grow up as a casual Christian. I went to Bible college. I was a pastor. I mentored Christian artists. I taught scripture. People used to literally call me to explain the Bible and break down theology. You know, there was a time where prayer, scripture, and ministry were the center of my entire life. My faith meant everything to me. So when people say you just got hurt by church people, it misses something important because church hurt is when someone leaves because people treated them badly. My questions didn't start with people. They started after years of studying the beliefs themselves. And the reason those questions matter so much to me is because my faith meant everything to me. And when you spend that much time studying scripture, teaching it, defending it, and building your life around it, eventually the questions get deeper than just people messed up. You start wrestling with the theology, right? The doctrines, the things you were taught to believe, right? Whether you can still honestly stand behind them. And that process isn't easy. And it's not something that most people go through casually. And I understand why people want a simple explanation like church hurt, right? But sometimes the journey is much deeper than that. And sometimes someone wrestles honestly with what they were taught and their conclusions change. And whether people agree with that or not, I think that type of honesty deserves curiosity and not just a label. So I ask you something. If someone spends years of studying a belief system deeply and eventually concludes that they no longer believe it, do you think that always comes from hurt?
No.
Uh, no.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, you've had a growth spurt in your mental capacity. So
Yeah.
so therefore, um your belief system has changed. I mean, like I tell everybody, it happened to me. I become afraid of why they run around the church, you know, in sheets and what why is the pastor so wealthy and nobody else? That concerned me. If I'm participating in this because we're supposed to be doing the right thing, we're supposed to be doing good. Why is everybody down here and these people on this riser? This is a riser. Why are they doing so well and nobody else? And so I think what happens is that when we become when you change and and you probably went to therapy and it changed like we said earlier and it
Yeah.
changes belief system. When your belief system, when you have to ask yourself, do I believe in the magic baby? Do I believe in the story that's been told over and over and over again? And when you can't parse it out, people like that concern me because they are members of cults. If you can believe that it's a magic baby from the magical mystical virgin that somebody came from the dead after 3 days without any respiratory aid. Um, if you believe in that, that's fine. I can separate the two. Now, do I believe in heaven and hell? Yeah, but 90% of this, you're going to just cease to exist. I didn't. I was born in 1973. I did not. I wasn't aware of what happened in 1972
Right.
because I wasn't here. Right.
Yeah. So I think, his belief system collapsed mainly because he had certain facts
Mm-hmm.
that were given by his faith that turned out to not be tenable. I'll tell you one of the most basic ones, which is disproven by math, and that is just the idea that God is omnipotent, all powerful. And so that sounds like logical. If it's God, God is all powerful. Unfortunately, that's not even possible. It's almost like saying, you know, how do we say it? Like a square circle, you know, like it's either a square or a circle. It's not both. The reason why is because power is the ability to move something in a direction. And if it's all powerful that you're moving in opposite directions, you see what I'm saying? You're working against itself. And I'll tell you the basic reason you can like prove this is, could God create a rock so heavy that he couldn't lift it? Right. In the one direction, you're talking the omnipotence of the most heavy object. The other is the omnipotence of the strongest person. And these two are in opposite directions, right? And it's untenable. Omnipotence in a single being is just not possible.
Right. I
You
don't.
know,
You
the funny part is they did this on The Simpsons. Oh god, it was the funniest one. Homer says, could God heat a burrito so hot that he couldn't eat it?
and he can. I mean, that's what you believe. I
Well,
think
that's what I'm saying.
something.
It's a quandary because if he can heat a burrito so hot he can't eat it, then he's not all powerful because he can't do a thing. Meaning that the burrito never got so hot that he couldn't eat it. Either he can't eat it or he can't heat it. One of the two will negate the other. Force and power is moving in a direction. So if how do I put it like this? Like you can be, it's like if you make everything special, nothing is special. You know?
Correct, but it sounds like I don't care what he says. His disillusionment came from man. I mean, you can just tell. I mean, people asking him the right question. Like, I think he became disillusioned with man and not the word. I mean, that's my personal opinion, and I think he
Sure,
just learned.
there's a part of that. That's true. But I think like we said about our opinions and how we defend them as a part of our identity, I'm sure there is a lot of personal hurt that comes from leaving that identity, right?
Right.
Let's say you do, because he said there was a lot of church hurt that he could have left before. So it's not like the church hurt didn't exist. He stayed, like you said, long after he probably should have left. And so there was some hurt and the loss of his theology.
Well, messy alert coming in. I think him and the pastor stopped fooling around and he decided to leave the church. Messy alert. Pew, pew, pew. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah, it is what it is. All right.
And Hoover decides that the Black Panther Party is the most dangerous organization in the country. It actually isn't because of guns. The United States has got more guns than any small Black community in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, is ever going to have. What they were afraid of was exactly that. It was the care. It was the food.
The goodwill.
It was the protecting you when you were illegally evicted from your home. It was the clothing. It was the health care that they were providing for people.
Doing the job of the state.
Doing the job of the state delegitimizes the state, and the people will then start to turn to each other, and that is a threat when you don't want those people to self-organize. It really is as simple as that. I don't think that most political parties, especially not in our two-party system, want to be a threat to the system they're trying to run.
Oh, hell no.
So they don't go help people because that's a threat.
Hell no.
She is right.
It is pretty fascinating.
And I said, I'm not scared of a germ. I used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is like if the phrase, "he ain't his daddy," was brought to life in some kind of unholy Frankensteinian science experiment.
Yep.
But here we are. So let's apply social judgment theory, which is all about how to understand persuasive messaging based on one's point of reference. Social judgment theory is a concept that looks at the psychological process of persuasion, and it operates with two key understandings. The first is that what a person finds to be reasonable or unreasonable in terms of persuasive messaging is going to be informed by their lived experience. And the second understanding is that persuasion is an incremental process. And by that I mean we typically think of persuasion as a binary of either a person is persuaded or they are not. But the fact of the matter is it would be more accurate to say that persuasion is a matter of degrees of receptivity to a particular message. This theory has four components to it. The first is the anchor position. The second is the latitude of acceptance. Then we have the latitude of non-commitment, and then the latitude of rejection. The anchor position is where you are as a person. This is your values, your beliefs, your ideals. This is what you consider to be normal and true and healthy. And this is intensely subjective, and that's okay. Now, there are some people who are going to say, but what about objectivity? And I need you to understand that is a related but separate discussion. Now, here's how the latitudes work. The latitude of acceptance is all the stuff that you're willing to go along with because it makes sense to you. Either it directly aligns with your own lived experience, or it is new information that is easily reconciled with the stuff that you already believe in. And so any sort of persuasive messaging within the latitude of acceptance is easy for you to go along with. The latitude of non-commitment is further away from your anchor position, and this is stuff that you're not necessarily willing to accept, but you can entertain it because it's new to you, it's foreign to you, it doesn't actively go against anything that you already know, and you don't particularly find it offensive. So you're willing to engage with the ideas, you're just not there yet in terms of actively accepting it. And then, of course, the last stage is the latitude of rejection, and this is the furthest away from the anchor position. And this is all the stuff that you are not willing to accept. This is all the stuff that actively goes against the things that you believe. It challenges stuff that you hold very dear, or you find it flat out offensive. All of this is a non starter. Now, in terms of the practical application of this theory, let's say that you encounter someone who aligns himself with the current Secretary of Health. I want you to keep two things in mind. The first thing is, they weren't born thinking this way. They have lived a life, they've had a variety of experiences, and they've received some persuasive messaging that have led them to this moment where they align themselves in this particular way. But this also means that they can be persuaded out of it. The second thing to keep in mind is I want you to consider where your latitude of acceptance overlaps with their latitude of non-commitment and try to pull them in that direction. If you're going to have repeated conversations with this individual, that means that you are building common ground that you can expand on. And if you're not going to have repeated conversations with that person, you are hopefully moving the needle just a little bit that someone else can then move a little bit further in another conversation.
So it was kind of interesting. One of the things I think I got from that was the idea that persuasion is not going to happen all at once, and people don't come to these beliefs all at once. Because the funny thing is, RFK Jr. comes from the left, right? And there are plenty of other people on the left who have some of the weird shit. Like we were talking about Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey, for instance, happened to be on that shit. And it's really fucked up. Who's that other one? Like
Um,
out of California liberals who are on that.
yeah, what's that bitch name? I mean, a lot of them are anti-vaxxers and all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of shit, and they got mad at the state of California, and
Yeah,
the governor was still requiring motherfuckers to get vaccinated before you
right.
the kids to school, and they was like, "Well, I'm not gonna put my kids to school." They was like, "Well,
Right.
fine, we don't want you to give everybody motherfucking cooties, nigga."
Yeah, they got into this idea of like purity culture and um, pesticides and dyes, and they came into a sort of anti-government perspective from the idea that the government was lying to us about our medicine and our food, and yeah, it was one of those horseshoe type politics where they were so far to the left that they actually started to be like right wing.
Privilege has become one of those words that nobody wants to have attached to them. But I think in doing that, we are hindering ourselves from being able to understand what privilege is and how to exist even when we do have that privilege. I am both black and queer. And in the context of the United States, those two particular categories
You
are
don't.
not categories that carry social power. If anything, they lead to much more disenfranchisement. However, I am also tall, formally educated, and have a full time job. Those things are absolutely points of privilege that afford me a level of lifestyle that other people are not able to access. The goal here is to not weaponize the privilege that I carry. So, because I am tall, when I'm in the grocery store and somebody asks me to reach for something that's on a shelf that they cannot reach, I don't think twice because it's very easy. I can just grab, here you go. That is what it looks like to not weaponize my privilege. But I think, quite frankly, we don't always think about how much privilege we are all carrying, and not weaponizing that privilege is what we should all be aiming to do. That is what it means to do the work.
So I think the privilege that I'm always made aware of. I mean, I think tall privilege is one, being big, but the major one is just being male and masculine. Like we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the fact that I am, people just assume that I'm straight. and that people, because of that, uh, think that I can, for one, like defend myself. That's the first thing. Is like I don't feel unsafe in most situations where if I were smaller or female, I would probably feel less safe.
So,
Um,
we do forget about male privilege when we talk, because,
you know,
we have so many more other minorities, and
hmm
you forget about it's a huge thing to have male masculine presenting energy.
hmm
Or,
right,
because that's huge. You know what I mean? Because we can
it
go into
is.
a room and be. Have you ever been in a room with somebody talking about gay people? No, seriously. They'd be like, yeah,
No, not in particular, but I have entered into rooms where people were unaware that there was a black person in the room. Like I do remember those. This oh shit, Malcolm's here. Like the only black.
oh,
I know what that's like. I know, yeah, like
I was in a room recently, and
mm,
it was just, man, this Atlanta, all these goddamn f bombs,
yeah.
and can't
You
even
talk about that
tell.
a lot. Yeah.
Well, they can't even tell who they are no more. Great day, and man, and then the other one who I thought was a gay was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta fight them off with a stamp. Like, nigga, you are getting gang banged by every nigga that walked by the window. Stop playing. But and that's crazy. And we never, I never think about educational privilege.
Yeah, certainly with class and just income level, education. Yeah, like the ability to communicate or um, for you will gain a certain amount of respect. I remember when I was telling you about how my mom used to get on me about speaking a certain way. I realized what she was trying to do was like make sure that I was less likely to be discriminated against because, um, if I were to speak more like AVE, it would just it, would- I would be discriminated against more. I mean, it just would. Um, I don't believe in the sort of respectability politics that sometimes people attribute to that, but I definitely understand the idea. Like, you know, there are
Now,
certain signals of class that come with speaking well. Yeah.
that's very true. But I think when I moved to the South, swag.
Mm,
When I moved to the South, the speech thing was out the window for me. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because ABE is the norm, even
hmm
at work. Even in
Right.
professional circles.
It's true.
Um, because I was told the other, and I was pissed, and I was using $10 words, and you know, I was in there, I was getting it, and and the black person that was on the call after we finished, she was like, "You should have just relaxed and got into your blackness and let her have it." I was like, "I let that bitch have it. What do you mean? All my SAT words at that bitch. Go ahead now." Uh, I'm serious though. It depends. I guess it depends on where you are.
Trump does a thing where all the men who work with him, he guesses their shoe size, and then he buys them a pair of his favorite shoes. Now, before you go like, oh, I bet Trump likes real nice shoes. That's pretty cool. No, Trump likes Florsheim shoes.
What?
Honestly, I didn't know they still made Florsheim shoes. I remember when I was a kid. They're not. They're fine. I mean, they're fine. They're fine. They're not
They're not comfortable.
presidential.
Right.
Sorry, I just lost that Florsheim sponsorship. Anyway, so Trump guesses the shoe size of the men around him, and then he buys them a pair of these shoes. But he doesn't ask people their shoe size because he's Trump. He guesses, and this is what Marco Rubio's walking around in. Yep, that's Marco Rubio's foot, and he's literally walking around in a pair of clown shoes. Because Marco Rubio couldn't say, "Sir, no, I don't wear a 10. I wear a 7.5." They're not serious people doing serious things. Not serious people.
That is crazy.
You know how much my dad would yell at me if I let another man do that to me?
Yes. I was just like, my father would dig himself out of the grave and come kick me in the face. If you let another man bitch you out like that, you wear big ass shoes like clown. Now, in
So
my
there were memes of that. I did not know what it was about, but there are memes of Marco Rubio in big clown slippers coming up
Yes.
and being all servile to Trump.
the other thing is he is Cuban American. We don't play that shit. You don't let no other nigga bitch you out for no shoes. What?
He is Trump's bitch. He is.
Yo,
Yes, he
Marco, you
is.
have lost. This is
You know,
the
there was another thing. I think it was on what was it? The Bulwark podcast. He had a representative or someone from the government who was making an official White House visit, and he was walking with Trump, going to different people in the West Wing, and they would ask him, you know, like, "How's the economy?" "The economy is wonderful, sir. It's blah 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 blah." It was like people are literally bullshitting him when they didn't have to bullshit him. You know what I mean? Like this was a private meeting. Right, and he started to realize, like, no, the economy is not great. But that's the kind of environment that exists in his White House that they, you know, he's the emperor with no clothes,
Right.
and you have to go wear the big. You have to wear the big ass shoes because, oh, these are great shoes, sir. Oh.
he gonna know what size shoe you got on anyway. He can't even remember what he gave you. Come down. Big ass shoe.
It's like he said, they are not serious people. They do serious things, but they are not serious people. All right, and that'll do it for this episode of the M3 Bearcast. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you would, consider following us on social media. Go to mailmediamindlive.com. You'll find links to all of our social media accounts. Subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the bell, and join us on our live streams. And if you would become a patron at patreon.com/mailmediamind, you'll get access to our after shows after our live streams, as well as groups on Telegram and access to books and all kinds of new things when we have the opportunity to say thank you to our patrons. Again, thank you for listening, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.